Hello, I'm Peter Finn, IABC Executive Director, and returning with another episode of IABC Inside Out, where we feature IABC leaders and give you an inside look at what's happening inside and outside the association. Today's guest is Sia Papageorgiou, who I've known for a few years, longtime IABC member and volunteer leader, as well as co-founder of the Center for Strategic Communication Excellence, or CSCE. Sia joins me to talk a little bit about um, the trends in professional development, opportunities around professional development, specifically for communicators, people that work in communications, a lot of our IBC members. So, Sia, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Peter. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, so I think some of our members know about CSC's work around certification and the GCCC, and you were a chair of the GCCC a couple of years ago. And I know as someone that's earned the SCMP credential, how does going through the process of certification strengthen the communicator's skills?
So, going through certification really makes you stop and think about what it is you do, why you do it, and how it creates value. And it really forces you to step back and look at your work through a strategic lens. And that helps you align everything you do to the purpose of your role. So, answering the question, why do you exist in an organization? Now, the reality is that our profession is full of people who have arrived from all sorts of paths. Some studied communication formally, like myself, others fell into it because somebody had to do it. So,
Mhm.
certification helps us fix that by professionalizing what we do. And it really sends a strong signal to employees, to business partners, to colleagues, and to peers that I've been benchmarked against a global standard, a global body of knowledge, and that is the global standard. And I understand what good strategic practice looks like. So it's not just about passing a 100 question exam. It's about changing your mindset. You start to think differently. You start to act differently. You start to lead differently. And what it is you gain is clarity about the purpose, your purpose as a strategic communication professional. And that changes everything about the way you show up in your organization.
And I just, I know we throw a lot of acronyms around, so I just wanted to make sure that those that aren't familiar with the GCCC, it is the Global Communication Certification Council. So just wanted to point that out. But another thing that, that I know I'm fascinated by, and I just, I think a hot topic for a lot of folks is, where we see things going in terms of professional development. So what are the, some of the trends that you're seeing? How do you think some of these needs, professional development needs, will evolve in the next few years? And where do you think we're headed? I mean, certainly with AI becoming more and more a part of the way that we do things, and not just in communications, but in so many areas of our work. I'd just love to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. So, look, professional development has changed quite a bit over the past few years. On the one hand, budgets are tighter, teams are getting smaller, but on the other hand, there seems to be a renewed seriousness about learning. So people want development that genuinely stretches them and strengthens their strategic capabilities. So that's a good thing. I did a piece of research earlier this year, as you know, Peter, which found that around 80% of respondents said they're working in hybrid or remote environments. And
Mhm.
that's completely changed the way a development happens. So, learning now needs to be more intentional, it needs to be more reflective, and it has to help people connect what they're learning to real outcomes. But what's worrying me a little is the growing competence confidence gap. So,
Mhm.
many professionals will say they have or believe they have already have the skills they need, but when you ask their managers, it's a totally different story. And I've been tracking that for a couple of years now, and it tells me that we need to get out of our own heads a little bit. We need to test what we think we know. And that's where certification can make a difference for the reasons I mentioned earlier, because it really validates your capability against a global standard and shows you where your real growth opportunities are. So, speaking of which, we're also seeing a real surge in certification, which tells me the profession is maturing, and that can only be a good thing. Now, people want to validate their skills, they want to be recognized globally, and more organizations are also asking for team based learning learning, which is a great sign too. So it shows that even with limited resources, leaders are investing in getting their teams aligned and ready before tackling those bigger challenges. And when it comes to the topics people are interested in, as you mentioned earlier, AI, strategic thinking, leadership, and influence. And that tells me that communication professionals want to lead, not just react. In the end, how that actually plays out remains to be seen because whether it's at conferences, unconferences, or any other kind of learning event, we seem to still be having the same conversations we've been
Yeah.
having for years, particularly around topics like measurement or demonstrating value. So I do wonder whether that shift is really happening or whether we're just still talking about it. Ultimately, though, it seems as though professional development is moving beyond training to something a little deeper. So people are starting to think more strategically, they want to lead confidently, and they want to prove their value because, as we know, the world is changing rapidly, and if we want to stay relevant, we need to change with it.
Yeah. Well, I was just say that, graduate school education or, it's become so cost prohibitive that having this certification is a huge value for a practitioner that may not have the resources to go back to school. And
Absolutely.
in a lot of ways the program, the certification, there's a lot of rigor there, right? It's big with ANAB so there's just, and I know IBC and the council in particular has done a lot of work to maintain that compliance, which is huge.
Absolutely. And it
Yeah.
is, as you know, the most rigorous communication certification in the world. There is no other communication association or institution that can make that claim. So we are number one in the world.
Yeah. Um, and I mean, what are some other trends that you're seeing in terms of, I guess, some of the education out there that, maybe programmatically has changed over the last, 2 or 3 years? Is anything to highlight there that, because I know you're out, speaking to many groups of people and, I mean, just maybe even feedback that you're hearing where people want more attention on, in terms of their profession, where they can develop.
Sure. So right now, the hottest topic is AI. So there's a huge interest in artificial intelligence, what that means for communication professionals, um, uh, particularly around how they can use AI to become more strategic, which I think is a positive sign. Um, the other thing is, we're seeing a lot of requests for certifications. So, not just a certificate program, but an actual certification. So,
Hmm.
people want to participate in learning that is going to give them some sort of credential. And I don't mean in the same way that the GCCC certification gives you the CMP or the SCMP credential. I mean, getting certified in a particular topic. So a lot of those micro certifications, which I think is a great thing, and it proves that people are starting to become even more serious about their learning, and they want to become an expert in something. They want to build their knowledge, so that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly a differentiator with your employer or prospective employer that you have this credential and have, demonstrated your knowledge, around these topics. But well, and along the lines of professional development, like what are some things that you're going to be focusing on in 2026, as you reflect maybe, or maybe you haven't yet because it sounds like you're very busy. But as the
Oh,
year draws to a close, what are some things that you'll be thinking about and maybe tackling for next year?
sure. So professional development, even though it doesn't matter how busy I am, professional development is number one on my radar. Okay, I'm a lifelong learner, and I
Mhm.
believe that the more you know, the better you become. So for me, it's very, very important. So as a certified strategic communication management professional or SCMP, I have to earn 40 points of continuing professional development every year to maintain my certification. So that part of my professional development is going to happen anyway. So that includes activities like teaching, and I teach strategic communication for a living, as you know, and I teach a number of other topics. I present a lot, I mentor people, I enter awards programs like the IABC Gold Quills, and I show leadership in the profession. So all of that, all of those activities count towards my ongoing professional development. But what really interests me is learning that sits beyond communication. So the things that stretch how we think and connect what we do to broader business value. And lately, I've been really curious about how communication links to business resilience and
Yep.
performance. And not just in theory either. So, in December, I am hosting a webinar through the centre with Dawn Grenner, who is the co author of the book, The Joy of Metrics. Now, measuring what matters in our profession is a huge issue. So I'd never thought I'd see the words joy and metrics in the same sentence. But her work around organizational resilience is absolutely fascinating. So I'm really keen to speak to her. So for me, in 2026, that next year is all about exploring what's happening in business and asking myself, what can I learn from that? In the end, I like to keep my learning a little bit unpredictable, aside from my, usual activities to maintain my certification, because it keeps me sharp, it keeps me humble, and it keeps me from getting too comfortable in my role.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for speaking with me, Sia. Always a pleasure.
Yes,
And
Peter,
yeah,
always.
I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you so much.